Hi boys! Last summer we covered several topics that schools tend not to cover, such as cursive. Apparently they don't think it's important anymore, even though you're expected to be able to sign your name on legal documents, and you're expected to be able to read things like the Declaration of Independence, which was written in cursive, as well as everything else written down by hand before, 1980 or so, which is most of time. So it's kind of important to be able to at least be able to read cursive and be able to sign your name. We also covered logical fallacies. Now, you can have whatever opinion you want. I really don't care, but I do expect you to have sound reasoning behind your opinions. I do expect you to be able to revise, correct, or reverse an opinion if you find it's based on one or more logical fallacies. At least revisit it. Also, folks on the news, especially politicians, love to use logical fallacies. They use them all the time because they're nice shortcuts to get people to come around to your point of view on things.
What I meant was these politicians are using logical fallacies to persuade you over to their point of view, not your point of view. You already have your point of view, but you know what I mean.
There's a reason why so many politicians and influencers prefer them. Now, you understand, Alex, don't worry about all those people that died from COVID. Instead, focus your attention on this one guy over here who got that evil vaccine. And meanwhile, he's friends with the guy who didn't get the vaccine. This one ended up in the hospital. This one didn't. Vaccines are bad. Yes, that's a logical fallacy. It's known as a hasty generalization. It's where you take one example or a small sample and you extrapolate that to everything, even though it doesn't apply. It's completely taken out of context. If you fall for that kind of thing, by the way, you might want to check out the playlist I created on logical fallacies. It might do you some good too. Anyway, it's good to be able to point out logical fallacies so you know when someone's trying to fool you, and that's why we covered them last summer. This summer we'll be covering investing and finance, which is quite important, yet they don't really cover it in schools anymore. Probably because public schools have communist roots. I'm only kidding. That's a joke. That's an ad hominem. Maybe a little true, but anyway. So we'll be covering the basics of investing your money with an emphasis on the stock market and all sorts of tangential topics as they come up. There are many, many moving parts and interconnecting pieces you have to be aware of when it comes to investing. Think of investing like a really complicated version of rock, paper, scissors. Okay? You really, really study scissors, and all of a sudden rock comes along to take your money. At least that's how we played it when I was a kid. Anyway, we'll be covering mostly stock investing for reasons we'll be covering later. And we'll also be covering other things that affect stock investing, such as the bond market, and real estate, and gold, and recessions. Which reminds me, hey, here's a random number that can be all yours for the low, low price of $45,000. Any takers? But I digress. There are many moving pieces in stock investing, so we may start covering one, then move on to a bunch of other things, only to come back to that one to cover it in more detail now that you have more knowledge of other things. I don't know how else to cover it except this way. There's a lot to know, definitely too much to cover in one summer, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't let the nirvana fallacy take over. We're not going to let perfection get in the way of progress. We can definitely learn more than the average investor, and more importantly, you can know where you don't know that much, and so you know you can focus on those later in life if you need to. You'll know what you don't know. For example, we'll be covering how to value a company in a very basic way. And if you want to be able to value a company a little bit better later on, more accurately, later you can learn all about how to read a balance sheet, income statements, cash flow statements, all the different metrics, what they mean that people use, and a lot of other tools for helping you get your handle on how much a company is really worth and so what you should pay for it, which will help you figure out how much you should pay for that slice of a company known as a stock. I'll point you to books you can read, podcasts you can listen to, YouTube videos, all kinds of other resources later on if you want to know more about certain things, okay? At least then you'll know a little bit more and know where to go from there to learn more stuff. And even then, you're still just going to be a beginner. Think of yourself like a Taekwondo black belt now. You're really just an advanced beginner because there's a second degree, third degree, fourth degree, fifth degree, years of teaching, except really you're going to be more like a green belt. But that's okay. You'll know things or something like that. Also, I'm trying to make these videos in such a way that they cover a particular topic in each one, and you can go back and refer to the topic you care about later in life when you need to know more about that thing. You're welcome, future selves. So today, let's just discuss in more detail why in the world you should be learning this stuff. Why is this stuff important? To be perfectly blunt, we live in a capitalist society. You'll learn more about capitalism in a little bit. It's designed to be easier for people with money and harder on people without it. Yes, that can and does suck for many people, but that's the system we're in. I also think with sensible regulations, it's the best economic system available, but if you don't have money and you need it to pay a hospital bill, for example, you may have to go into debt to pay it. Now you're even more broke than when you were before, since you have to pay the debt off on top of all your regular expenses like housing and food, utilities, transportation, medicine. If you can't pay that medical bill, you may have to go into debt to pay it. And if you can't pay the debt, you may have to declare bankruptcy. If you have to declare bankruptcy, that will screw up your credit for years and years to come. And in a capitalist society, to get anywhere, you kind of need credit, at least initially.
Good credit. I meant to say good credit. Everybody has credit. You need good credit.
Without credit,
Good credit.
it's pretty much impossible. You have a car loan, a mortgage, a credit card, anything. And so you're paying for everything with cash. And you don't got the cash, you don't get the goods. Capiche? What if you accidentally break the law and you get fined? And you can't pay the fine? Well, they may throw you in jail for a little while. But while you're in jail, that means you can't go to work, which means you might lose your job. And now you're without a job. And you have that fine. Not having money in a capitalist society sucks. Many people live like this. It's called living paycheck to paycheck, where the money goes out as soon as it comes in. They have no savings, no investments. They just need that money as soon as it comes in, and it gets spent right away on things that they have to spend it on. People, unfortunately, are also slaves to their jobs because they need the paycheck. If you need the paycheck, then your employer can really take advantage of you. They can treat you as poorly as they want to. They can treat you really bad, and you can't do much because you need that paycheck. You can't quit because you have no savings to live on while you're looking for another job. So you're stuck there. Basically, in a capitalist society, everything is harder on you if you don't have money. Money is vitally important, so you should learn about it. Can you imagine having to choose between your groceries and your light bill? Lots of people do. Now, I'm not saying money is a cure-all. Money definitely is not a cure-all. If you're a miserable when you're poor, you're going to be miserable when you're wealthy. However, if you have money and a hospital bill comes in, you can pay it. If you have money and you get pulled over for a traffic ticket, you can pay it. And watch that stop sign next time. Don't run that again. I'm mainly talking to you Audi drivers out there. And use your darn blinker! But I digress. If they mistreat you at work, you can look for another job. You have money to live on in the meantime. Again, money doesn't solve all your problems, but coming from a guy who didn't have much money growing up and now has enough money, having money is way better. I can buy milk if I want to. And for some reason, they don't really cover this stuff in school. And for that reason, we're going to be covering it this summer. In the meantime, watch this video. Not yet. Don't click on it yet. And tomorrow, we're going to start discussing your first lesson, the value of being a cheapskate. Until then, click on that link. And we'll discuss after that.